the Know Your Gear podcast. Today's episode of the Know Your Gear podcast is brought to you by Patreon members, channel members, and viewers who like and subscribe. Thank you for making this possible.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast, episode 406. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week and ready for some guitar stuff, right? It's guitar time. It's time to talk about guitars. Can I say that one more time? Time to talk about guitars. As always, I want to thank you all for joining me live. And there's no commercials during the actual live broadcast. So if you don't like the commercials, you can come watch it live every Friday, or you can listen to it on audio podcasts, or you can become a Patreon member for, I saw all the rates you saw below. you can see it for ad free if that's something you care about. Okay, so let's talk about some stuff. We'll do guitar of the week this week, kinda. Say kinda on the guitar of the week, and we'll get into some subjects and topics. And as always, I want to thank the moderators and the channel members and the patrons for supporting the Friday show. Let's see. I thought I grabbed an early riser question. Let's see what I grabbed, because I grabbed a bunch of stuff. Let me just jump on this one first. Here's a topic that I had queued up from emails. So a lot of you guys have been sending us a lot more emails lately. I told you emails go in ups and downs. Sometimes we get, a couple dozen, sometimes we get a couple hundred, and it's just in one day, and it just gets a little much. And so this week was a high week email list. So we kind of go through and I try to hit the ones I can. So let's see what I got here. I got a topic that says, it says, "Hey, Philip, I really like your videos. Very informative." Anyways, he says, he didn't say anyways. He said, quick question. He says, "I have an Ibanez bass with a Jatoba fretboard. Normally I use the F1 oil from Music Nomad, but I saw something about using baby oil. Is this true?" I have never used baby oil on a fretboard. I have heard everything. I've heard, I'm just telling you what I heard. I heard people using vegetable oil. I've heard people using water. I've heard people using gunstock oil, tongue oil, lemon oil, Crisco. I'm not exaggerating. Vaseline. Everybody's got a thing. I've heard some people say you should never put anything on the fretboard ever. I've heard it all. What I have done for years is there was a guitar tech that I knew, and for years he just bought lemon oil. And, like furniture lemon oil, like lemon oil for furniture. And he could buy it by the gallon. It was really cheap. I kind of follow under this kind of logic of, I really like the idea. Look, I'm not convinced that a lot of the stuff that these manufacturers that are making fretboard conditioners are better than anything else you can get. It's just, kind of like my logic is I use a brand. I pick a brand usually that I like. Okay. There's a Lizard Spit's a brand I really, really like. Music Nomad is a brand I really like. But so, I've heard negative things about Music Nomad's F1 oil and polish. So, if you look on Sweetwater, they have a lot of negative reviews. I have not experienced that. However, I have experienced with F1 oil, because I started buying it in bulk, that when it sits for a year or two, it does change. It's really like sticky. So I just went ahead and just swapped it out for new stuff. I'm sure somebody's going to have some suggestions, but let me just stick with my thought process. My thought process is I pick a product, I use it consistently. If there's an issue, I know exactly who to go and talk to. Okay. And that's my big thing. My big thing is I'm more, find what you got to take your chance like I did. That's basically what I did. I looked at all the players involved. A lot of companies used terminology I didn't like. The guy at Lizard Spit literally would drink his products in front of you at the damn show. And I thought, well, if he's going to drink it, I'm going to stick it on my instrument. But mostly what I care about is this, and this is me personal. Everybody's not going to have this same situation. I can get a hold of the owner of Lizard Spit, and I can get a hold of the owner of New Music Nomad. I actually believe if you wanted to, you could as well. They don't seem like they ditch people. I cannot get a hold of the owners of these bigger companies. And to be honest with you, when brands like Gibson or Fender, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about their polishes and their conditioners, they don't make that stuff. They outsource it, and they change all the time. When I was a dealer, those companies would change vendors all the time. It felt like it. Well, I say all the time. I mean, every few years. And so I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'd rather deal with a product where I know I can get somebody on the phone and say, hey, look, I've been using this on this $4,000 guitar for the last couple of years, and here's the issue I'm having, and have someone actually say, okay, here's what I think it could be, or here's what it is. So I just kind of keep it that way. And then, but there's certain things like, for instance, what's the, I love D'Addario as a brand, but I don't use a lot of I don't use, what product of theirs? It's the one where it looks like it has red dye in it. And I just didn't like that. I thought it was weird. It stained my rags red, and I thought that was weird. And I was like, I don't know what was in it. And they don't tell you. And somebody mentioned Dunlop 65. You know, Dunlop 65 is a funny one because I used to use, before I switched to Lizard Spit and Music Nomad, years and years and years ago, I used to only use Dunlop. And one day, a customer came in the shop and asked me specifically what's in the Dunlop, finishes and oils and stuff, the lemon oils and stuff. And I said, I don't know. And I looked in the bottles, it didn't really say. And I go, well, I'll reach out to Dunlop. I reached out to Dunlop, and they said they couldn't tell me. Now, granted, I got an employee, and then I got another employee. But either way, I couldn't get an answer. As someone who's actually a representative of that product, in other words, I have to sell that product to somebody else, and I couldn't find the answer. So that's what turned me off from that kind of stuff. It's like, look, if you're not going to tell me what's in it, how am I going to know, if there's a problem? So that's kind of the thought process. But as to the main question, so he says, what about coconut oil? So he said linseed oil, all that stuff. I've heard it all been used. You can use whatever you like. But again, it's your guitar. I definitely have a different mindset. It's not even that I'm like, it's like my guitars are special. For almost 20 years, I dealt with other people's guitars. And so it became, I'm accountable to them. And I really wanted to know what I was sticking on somebody's guitar if there was a problem, and I told you, it's why I'm very firm about guitar stands and the materials they're made of and stuff. It's like anything that I'm going to have to answer for. And if you've ever owned a business or had to work with the public, the worst feeling in the world, the most stressful, intense feeling is someone with a problem and you can't help, but you're responsible, right? It's a very horrible feeling, right? Very horrible. It's like, I don't know how to fix your problem. I technically helped you cause it, but I don't know, and I can't find anybody to help me. And so I became very focused on, if I couldn't get somebody on the phone. This is funny. I'm going to go on a weird tirade right now, but so this is the one thing I've learned over the years, many years of being on YouTube now and working with all these artists over the years. They tend to say the same thing about artist agreements. I used to believe, like a lot of you, and look, and I'm not saying it's one way or another is a fact, but I'm just telling you my personal experiences with this is I used to believe that artists jumped all the time for money. This company will pay them more money, so they jump. That does happen. Don't get me wrong. That's huge. But I have found more times than not, same answer I just gave you. If they can't get somebody on the phone, if they can't get help, they're like, look, I don't want to work with a company where I can't get help. It's just that simple. An artist once said, it was really funny, that basically they had an issue. Fans were like, hey, I bought this product because you said it was good. I'm having an issue with it. And they're like, okay, I'll ask the company to answer the question. The company wouldn't respond to their emails and texts and calls. And they're like, I'm the face now of this, and I can't help my fans. So I feel the same way. It's like, if I can't help you with the answer, then I don't want to deal with it. But I really do... I do, like I said, very upfront. Like I said, Music Nomad does have a lot of negative reviews. You should go out and read them if that's something concern you. A lot of them are really scary sounding, to the point where I almost stopped using my Music Nomad products on Sweetwater. In fact, you know what? I'll just share. So again, I have not had these personal experiences, nor have I seen anyone have this. But it's still, let's go to Music Nomad, because now the reason why I'm doing this is not to is to make sure I'm correct, because I would really hate if I'm saying this and then it's like, no, what are you talking about? They have great reviews. So let's look. I'll go look at reviews on Sweetwater. I'm pulling it up right now. F1 oil. Oh, they got 34. I'll share with you. So here's it is reviews F1 oil. So it's got 34 reviews. Most of them are 5 stars. Looks like no negatives. Okay, so I'm probably thinking of their guitar polish. Let me go to the guitar polish. So there you go. I use F1 oil on my fretboard. And there's a lot of reviews right there. Here's the polish. It's kind of creeping me out, guys, because their polish also has perfect ratings. I know for a fact I read tons of negatives because somebody sent me a link. I read it. It was like a year ago. I remember reading them. Let's take a look. So maybe they've corrected it, but I don't know whether reviews would be gone. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe no issues in Music Nomad. Like I said, I've never had any issues with Music Nomad. Definitely have not had any issues with Lizard Spit. But now I'm not seeing any negative reviews. Let's say guitars cleaning and care. I'm just going to double check just in case. Like I said, no, I can't find them now. And then we find them later. I'm not seeing them. I'm seeing mostly all positive reviews. Here, I'll share you guys. Everything I'm reading is, there's some that doesn't have very many reviews, but so maybe they've corrected whatever it is. Maybe it was you know what? I wonder if it was the guitar wax. No, that's got five reviews and like 5 stars. So interesting. I'm wondering if it was a product that was discontinued. That would make sense. Maybe it got bad reviews. Oh, here's one that just got 1 star. So, all right, there you go. So I'll say Music Nomad sounds good. But like I said, because it looks like, I bet you whatever it was I read it, because it was at least a year ago, at least, maybe 2. So maybe they just don't care anymore. Somebody says hair grease. Use hair grease. I don't have hair grease. Robert Purdy says, I stopped using F1 oil. It gooped up on the fretboard and made it sticky. So funny that you say that, Robert, because that's what I read. I read that it made fretboards kind of sticky, and I told you mine did kind of. It didn't goop up; it just got thicker and sticky. And again, it could have been the age, and it could have been heat. Maybe it was maybe I put it in the garage and didn't realize it. I don't know. So I just got new stuff, and I haven't had a problem since. But I stopped buying it in the bulk. I was buying the bulk bottle because it's bigger. You save a little money over time. But I just don't go through it fast enough. So, anyways, and then what I will tell you to answer this question is, no matter what you use, everyone's going to have a very strong opinion about what it did, it's how it's going to hurt your guitar. And it's always funny to me because it's not like I don't want to sit there and go, I repaired a lot of guitars. And let me tell you, because I repaired a bunch of guitars, I know the answer. I can only tell you, here's my experiences, but you have to understand, who I hang out with, that's what they do too. They repair guitars or they build guitars. And that's who I mostly hang out with. And they tend to have the same experiences. There's some experiences are different. Like, for instance, if you're in Indonesia, you have a very moist climate to my very dry climate. Those are going to be different. But when we talk about certain things, and the one thing I will tell you is, I have repaired more without a question, in my mind, I've repaired more fretboards from not hydrating them than overhydrating them. I've heard that if you use too much fretboard conditioner or oil on your fretboard, that the frets will lift out. I don't know. It's possible. Why not? Anything's possible. But what I can tell you is, if you go through and I look at all the repairs I've done, I can tell you that I repaired way more guitars from fretboards cracking or having issues from drying out than I have from somebody overhydrating the guitar. And so I'm not saying you can't overhydrate your fretboard and stuff. I'm just saying it's not very likely. Who the hell are you out there? It's like, every day I just go out there and oil my fretboard every day. In my experience, most people think they're oiling their fretboard a lot. You're probably doing it twice a year. That's, and if anyone wants to know, what do I recommend? It depends on how often you restring. And why I say that is, if you restring once or twice, 3 times a year, let's say once a quarter at max, I'd say, if you oiled your fretboard every time, you'd be fine. I don't think that would be too much. I don't think you need to do it 4 times a year, but it wouldn't be too much. If you change your strings every week, that's too much. So I tend to oil fretboards when I restring guitars, because I don't restring guitars more than, let's say, once a year. It's not very common for me to change my strings that often, because I can rotate guitars. So I don't have to, I'm not making the strings, I'm not wearing out strings that fast. And then just for a habit, if anyone wants to know, my habit for oiling or treating the fretboard is, I always treat the fretboard when the current strings are on it. So the strings I'm going to take off, I just oil it underneath the fretboard. I get the strings all oily and stuff. I don't care. I just do it. It's just easy. Clean it all up, and then I yank off. If I'm doing a restring, if I'm doing a setup, that's different. But if I'm trying to be fast about it. So, all right, let's go to another subject. Amanda grabbed one. By the way, I see your super chats too. I'll grab those too. Amanda sent this from K-Dub. K-Dub says, hey, do you have any suggestions for a good but not expensive replacement bass pickup? I got a Hills short scale passive bass. That is hilarious, K-Dub. I can't tell you why it's hilarious, but I promise if you hang out to the end of the show, you'll have a good laugh. Anyways, replacement bass pickup. I got a Hills short scale passive bass with a single soap bar pickup. Love the instrument except for the pickup. Well, first of all, let's talk about that. So you guys are all aware, let's bring everybody up to the same page. Let's go to Hills America. Hills America. That's the website you use if you're going to go to Hills. There it is. Hills. Let's go to look at our home, our story. Blog support English. Is this? Where's the instrument? Instruments. The instruments. Headless bass. Okay, so here's what he's talking about. This instrument right here. This has, it's really hard to see. It's a black pickup on a black pickguard. And they give you a close up. There you go. So one of the problems you have, buddy, is this is what's called a sweet spot pickup. That's a term used pretty often in the industry where it's one pickup in the sweet spot. I think Music Man was the first time I ever heard that, putting a pickup in the sweet spot. But then bass companies like Zahn and all kinds started using the sweet spot logic. So that pickup, I'm not sure what shape it is. That's the question. It is a passive pickup. So the question to you is not, should you change the pickup, but should you maybe put a passive or an active circuit in it? That would be massively impactful to the bass tone, more so than the pickup. Because part of the tone, so part of that tone is going to be what I call quacky, okay? It's got a little bit of a mid-range quack to it because it's not towards the back where it's bright, and it's not towards the neck where it's going to be warmer. It's not a two pickup bass like a jazz bass. And it's not essentially like a P bass, because if you look at where it is, it's not really like a P bass either. So it's close to that. There's a lot of things going on. So you can change the pickup. If it fits, I like Bartolini's. That's one of my go-to pickups for basses like that. But I'd almost say get yourself a nice 2-band preamp. And one of the things you can do, which is nice if you've ever followed any of my crazier advice in the past, is get yourself a nice EQ pedal. And it doesn't matter, like a Boss or whatever. When I say nice, I don't mean expensive. I just mean like a EQ pedal. You can even get the Behringer one. People complain it's noisy, but I don't care. I think every guitar player, bass player should have a EQ pedal. If you have one, keep it. If you don't use it, keep it. If you don't have one, get one. Literally, it's how you figure out things. So that's a great pedal. You would plug that bass into it and kind of see if pushing the bass in the highs kind of let that bass have more of a snap. Because remember, think of it this way. That bass is going to be very mid-range. It's never going to be very nasal like this. It's good. That's just how it is, which is great because in a mix, it's going to cut through. It's going to be in the mix beautifully, right? Which is why so many players like Music Man basses, they're really just in the mix perfectly. P basses in the mix. But it is very mid-focused. So you could change the pickup, but because you're not changing the position, sure, a better quality pickup will, let me put it this way, a better quality pickup will have slightly more highs, slightly more bass, slightly more something, more output, slightly more of something. But keep in mind, if the problem with the tone is the bass, you're going to be exaggerating the problem by putting a better pickup in it, not, kind of evening out the issue. So I would definitely try, Susan says, do that again. No. So anyways, so back to, I use an EQ pedal and see if adding a little bass and adding a little, and don't adjust it on your bass amp or whatever you're plugging into. Do it through an external pedal. Because you're shaping the sound that the amplifier will now kind of amplify out, right? Does it make sense? So do it from an EQ pedal is a perfect way. If it works, you could get yourself a very inexpensive 2-band EQ, drop it in that tone control. I would say, let's look at the back. Well, it's got a big pickguard in the front. What does it have in the back? It doesn't have anything in the back. Oh, no, it does. Oh, my God. Look at that. Look at that. Big O cutaway right there. So look at that. Oh, there's more than enough room for a battery in there. And you could put a battery in there. I would say do that. Me personally, I've given up, on something like a 2-band system. I mean, you could put a 3-band in there too if you want, but like I said, we already know mids are in there. So I just need to do a high and low EQ and get a cheap one, stick it in there. They're not that expensive and they're not that hard to wire in. It's going to be easier because remember, it's just, I don't know. Sorry, Fast Freddy's like, Phil just recommended EQ pedal. That means the price is going to go up. Yeah, it's funny. What's funny is the EQ pedal is it's a thing that I thought I had figured out. I thought I was so smart, pre the internet. I was like, oh, I have an EQ pedal. I used to, my favorite thing to do with EQ pedal was to stick it in the effects loop of an amp I didn't like. So if the amp didn't have enough gain, I'd stick an EQ pedal in the effects loop and juice it. And if the amp didn't have the EQ settings, I would just run in the effects loop. You could really manipulate an amp with the EQ pedal. And then when I met people like Tim Pierce, right? You meet all these studio guys, and they're all like, "Well, of course, that's what we use." And you're like, "Oh, I thought I was smart." It's really everybody uses it all the time. But that's my suggestion for that. So try it. And like I said, get yourself an EQ pedal. Yeah, Max says Boss EQ pedal is very good. It's what I use. Everybody, in fact, speaking of which, of Tim Pierce and all the pro studio guys, they all have given me the advice to get the modded one. There's a modded EQ pedal. But my problem is that I don't really use an EQ pedal. I don't use it all the time. I use it to solve problems like, try to figure something out. Like, hey, how would this guitar sound if it had a little bit more higher output pushing to the amp? What would that sound like? And I juice it up a little bit and run the EQ flat. And then I go, oh, it sounds different, or better. And then I just adjust from there. Gene says graphic EQ and parametric EQ are two equalizer layouts that are offer different methods of frequency control. So I have a parametric EQ. I actually have a Boss parametric EQ as well. I like parametric EQ. I used to have a rack mount one forever. My personal, kind of experience with graphic and parametric EQs is parametric EQs are really cool and they do a lot of cool things, but graphics are like, they're dumbed down. It's just a lot easier to slide into some, the parametrics is like when you're really trying to get it in focused right. You can really dial in some really nice in between, kind of sounds, frequencies and stuff is really good. There's times in my life where I'm like, oh no, parametric's the only way to go. But then I kind of find myself graphic is just so basically easy. Okay, let's do another one. Todd 080864 says, hey Phil, I'm taking a liking to the Class A tube amps. Do you know of any that won't break the bank besides the Bujera V5? That's probably one of the best priced ones out there. Because most of all, keep in mind, the Class A tube amps, a lot of them aren't Class A. They just say they're Class A. Some are still Class AB. But I don't know. I would think, depends what you want. I don't really know. I went through that road before, when I had my car amp, the Mercury, it was like a Class A. And I had for a while, I just had a bunch of expensive hand-wired Class A amps. And I was like, oh, they're so reactive, so intense. And then over time, I just found myself going, it's nice, but I don't really care. So that's what happened to me. It's the more I try amps, the more I realize, like, okay, there's amps I prefer, and then there's amps that are like truly different. But I find that I'm still drawn back to amps that are more you have more utility. In other words, do more things than just one thing I love. Class A amps do something I really absolutely love, but then I feel like once I'm down that road, that's the only road I could be on. Now, keep in mind, if you do one kinds of music, that's where a lot of it makes sense. But for me, I'm always doing different videos and different sounds and different things. So it's constantly like, how do I get a death metal sound? And how do I get a blues sound? And how do I get a different sound? I'm always trying to figure out something to make some kind of content with it so that my needs are different. Let's do a super chat. This one came from Antique Rocker. He says, I noticed some acoustic instruments with a piezo, just kidding, Got a buzzing hiss, especially upright basses using a bow. What is the cause and can it be avoided? So one of the causes could be that you're using a passive transducer pickup. And what happens with a passive transducer pickup is you have to drive the mixer or the amp or whatever you're using, the gain on that very hard to get the sound, because you're just like pulling the sound from almost nothing, and it raises up the noise floor. So that is very common in a passive transducer system, which is why very few instruments have passive transducers. Most of them will have an active system, because of the fact that if you have to bring the volume up using the amplified source, you do bring up the noise floor. So one thing you could do is use an EQ pedal. You can use an EQ pedal. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm just good. From now on, my answer to every question. So how do I fix a paint chip? I would use an EQ pedal. No, you can use an EQ pedal for sure. And then you could also get a active transducer pickup. It's up to you. There's multiple ways to do this. Keep in mind, all the actual strips, the transducer strips, or all the components are passive by nature. So the active happens immediately afterwards. So what I'm saying is you just want to go from the pickup right into something like a preamp pedal or an EQ pedal, a preamp, something that's going to bring up the signal so that the amp isn't driving from a very weak source. That's you need more going to the amplifier or the PA or whatever you're sending to the recording interface, whatever it is. That doesn't, like I said, if you make that do all the work, it's going to bring up the noise floor. So that's how you'd really do that. But again, one way to test that, whether I'm not right or wrong, is to test with an EQ pedal. Throw in an EQ pedal, drive the signal up, and see if, even though the EQ will add noise, see if the noise changes. So it'll have noise, it'll just change. In other words, you'll notice the hiss is less. It's different and less. Does it make sense? Like it won't sound like what it sounds like now, because what it sounds like you have is a really high noise floor. In other words, because you're driving a very weak signal. It's like what we talked about before with EMG pickups on a guitar. The pickups, they use very weak magnets, and therefore the signal going to the amp is very weak magnets, very underwound. And that's what they use the preamp for. They're boosting the signal, because otherwise the amp would be working extra hard to get that signal. And again, it brings up the noise floor, brings up all the stuff. That's why EMGs are ultra quiet, because the amp's getting such a strong amount of signal that it doesn't have to like drive that signal up. It's got something usable from the gate, is what I would call it. K-Dub says, theme today, always use an EQ pedal. It is funny. It's funny, as I did a video, I'll put a link at the timestamp now. I did a video with Tim Pierce on his channel where we talked about EQ pedals. That's what we talk about. Basically, it's the hidden gem that everybody needs. And I've seen everybody from, every studio musician I've seen has talked about that. And why they have them, and why they have them on their board, or why they have them in the studio. Brian says PRS needs to make a EQ pedal out of tone wood. It's the tone wood pedal. All right. Okay, let's go to another one. Let's see what else we got. This one came from Lee, and he says, is it okay to pair twisted telly pickups with the 4-way switch? It absolutely is. No problem that I know of. Okay, let's see. Quick question. This is from, I'm going to mess up your name, so I'm going to say Talonzo. I hope I'm saying it right. Talonzo says, hey, Phil, big fan. Always have fun with how many myths you have debunked for me. Okay. This is quick question. Any advice in a good quality priced cabinet? Well, with cabinets, a guitar cabinet, to me, what's great about them is they're constructed. Sometimes they're constructed very poorly to save money, and sometimes they're constructed very poorly for sound. So it's funny that way. So a perfect example, I always like this one as my favorite example, is Engel amplifiers use plywood. not plywood, I'm sorry. They use particle board for a lot of their baffles and a lot of the parts of their cabinets because the density sounds really good. They're not the first and definitely not the only company to do that. A lot of companies have used particle board, and I've heard cabinets made of particle board that sound fantastic. So I don't necessarily have I have all the cabinets, so to speak. Like I have the pine cabinets, and I have a 13 ply birch, void-free birch cabinet. I have all these types of cabinets, and I don't know necessarily that I really hear a massive difference in the cabinets, the materials. Like this is back to like the tone wood debate, almost like the tone cabinet wood debate. I would say, if you're asking me to assign a percentage to each thing that matters in the cabinet, I'm going to say, just to make life easy for me, 60% is the speaker. So that's 60% of the sound regardless. So in other words, if you have a great cabinet, it's made of the most perfect wood, it's hand carved, it's magical, and you put the worst, dog crap speaker in there, I'm going to say the cabinet's not going to sound great. There's just no way. So I would say the speaker matters most. Then after the speaker, I would say the design of the cabinet matters next, by far. Now remember, we're talking guitar. If we talk bass, we have to talk a little differently, because definitely design of the bass cabinet is really huge. In fact, I would say it almost equals to the speaker, almost, because of the fact that, because the bass is so intense, the frequency is so intense. What does that cabinet do with it? But in a guitar, I would say the design of the cabinet would be the next thing that's important. And then the materials really have to do, in my opinion, with durability. Like, how durable is it? A pine cabinet's great until you drag it on a tour, right? It's soft wood, it's dense, easy, especially the ones that don't have metal corners. Somebody was saying, I think somebody says, don't get, Fast Freddy 33 said, don't get particle board wet. Perfect example, right? Well, don't even worry about getting wet. Just, it can get moisture, it could all kinds of things in the particle board could start falling apart. Everybody's seen like chunks of particle board come off where screws went in and stuff. So yeah, I think the material matters, but I would say definitely, to me, I would say in order. Okay, this is why I'm laughing, because the fourth thing always makes me laugh. I've been asked this question so many times that I can't believe it's a thing I get asked, which is like, hey, Phil, does a hand-wired cabinet matter? And I'm always like, oh my God, this is so funny. Like, in other words, clipping it onto the tab of the speaker versus soldering onto the speaker. I have heard some people say yes. I've heard them say, yeah, it's better, it's stronger signal path, it's better, whatever. I definitely agree with the whole, hey, soldered connections they're stable, more stable than a clip, because a clip could vibrate loose. Because remember, the speaker's vibrating all the time, everything's vibrating. So of course, a connection can come loose, right? I've said this before. The first thing you do as a guitar tech when you get a guitar in for repair, doesn't matter what it is you check all the screws, you tighten all the screws. It was one of those things, like I definitely wasn't the first. Like most of my ideas, I didn't come up with them. I just found somebody with a great idea, and I said, okay, I'll follow their lead on this. And so one of the things on my repair sheet was tighten all screws, yes or no. And customers would laugh, because I would check it, and they're like, oh, you tightened all the screws? Like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it's very important, because your guitar is vibrating. It's vibrating. All the screws are coming loose. That's how it works. Everything's coming loose. It's vibrating. So same with cabinets. So I think a soldered connection is more stable. However, my point is, let's say there's 4 things. I don't know why I got my thumb out. 4 things that matter to a cabinet. I'm going to say, in order, to me, it's speakers first, cabinet design, cabinet material, and then whether or not it's hand wired or not. Those are the 4 things. And then to actually, here's what's even funnier. When we talk about cabinet design, what's almost as important as cabinet design sometimes is whether or not the cabinet's on the ground or not. If it's on wheels, if it's flat on the ground, if it's touching the surface, or if it's suspended off the ground, massive difference. But so to answer your question, I would say, unless you're hyper focused on durability, the cabinet material is not as extreme for a guitar. Like I said, in a bass, one of the things I always liked was Mesa Boogie would make sealed bass cabinets, and one of the guys at Mesa Boogie showed me this years ago, where he took a lighter, it had a good flame on it, like a 3-inch flame, and they would play bass to the cabinet, and he would run the lighter around the seams and all kinds of spots on the cabinet to see if almost like a Indiana Jones movie, to see if it flickered from any air escaping. They wanted zero air to escape this cabinet. It didn't have any ports or anything. It was just sealed. And then, and if it did have ports, they wanted all the air coming out of there. They didn't want any loss of that. So again, I know there in materials in a base cabinet can matter. They can be very important. And again, I'm not saying the materials don't matter. I'm just saying in a hierarchy, it's like a guitar. It's like, does tone wood matter? Yeah. Can we shuffle that down a lot lower than, let's say, pickups and strings before we get there? So I don't know. That's my thought for there. This was from Eric, who says, "Hey, what are good indications of worn strings?" It's funny is strings. Not only a lot of players say the term dead. Strings are dead. As a bass player, every bass player can answer this question way better than every guitar player. Every bass player can tell you. You can tell for all you guitar players. I know a lot of you are not bass players or dual role musicians, right? Where you play bass and guitar. If you're a guitar player and you're a band, if you want to see how dead your bass player's strings are, here's how you check. You walk up to their amp and look at their high frequency control on their amp. If it's on 10, their bass strings are dead. As a bass player, as your strings go dead, in other words, as the highs dissipate because they're just kind of more muted, you just keep driving up the high frequencies. Think of this. This is why so many bass amps have multiple high frequency adjustments. You can really adjust the highs. You can just keep adjusting out how dead those bass strings are. So guitar player, if you find you have to drive your highs a little bit, a lot of guitar players, I find if you're definitely playing rock or metal, pinch harmonics become harder on dead strings for sure. To the point where the string's really dead, it's really hard to pull them off, especially as well. And I'm not talking about harmonics, open string harmonics. I'm talking about actually pinch harmonics where you're squealing and stuff. Those become really problematic. The thing about this is there is this thing that's been said for years, which is if your strings get too old, too dead, they're stretched out. They're just no good. I don't know that. I mean, I literally had guitar players bring me a guitar and they had the same strings for 20 years. And I'm not exaggerating. I wish I was. Like original strings, like this guitar is 20 years ago, the original strings, they don't want to change them. They're like, don't change them. In fact, right on my sheet, do not change strings. Right? And you're like, all right, I got to do a setup, not change the strings. So, I mean, different strokes for different folks. Me personally, I've said this before. I used to like strings when they were bright, always, guitar strings right when they were new, which was the worst thing to like because you're always buying new strings. And then somehow over time, I just kind of found that I like them a little more dead, a little more muted. So I like them about after the first week of playing. And then from then on, and then, to me, it's not about their sound anymore. It's like when they get crusty, they just get old and crusty. And one thing you can do to stop that is clean your strings. The best way to clean your strings, the best way is with a clean, dry cloth after every play. You do one wipe on top of the strings, and if you can put it underneath the strings between the fretboard and slide it under there and get it under there, it's fine. You could use a paper towel if you so like. I only caution you because paper towels and stuff, although sound very, like no big deal, they can scratch the paint on your guitar if that's, if you don't want little pick squirrels and stuff. So, I mean, some of you guys, I don't want you to, take your $4,000 PRS and scratch the finish with a paper towel. But your strings and stuff, just wipe them down. There's string cleaner. There's all kinds of stuff you can use. I don't prefer to use any of that stuff. I find it's all prolonging the inevitable. So if you use a string cleaner, first of all, and again, this isn't my personal experience, like me playing. This is just watching guitar players over years and selling this stuff to them and watching what happens. I feel like almost everyone who cleans their strings, eventually those strings just break anyways. I mean, not like in a year. I mean, like in a week, they just break. So I find the best way to prolong the life of your strings is just to wipe them down constantly after every time you play. Just every time. If you touch the strings, wipe them down. Get all the oils and dirt out of there. And then Muddle Burrow 6174 says microfiber cloth for the win. Yes, absolutely. That's what I use. I use the Sweetwater Costco, the Costco shop tails that you buy, the yellow pack. That's fine. Or you just get whatever ones you want. Just, cheap microfiber cloth is absolutely what I actually use. You see me use it all the time in videos. If you pay attention to the videos, I don't know why you would be paying this close attention. You'll always see a white towel and a yellow towel sometimes in the background of a video. Specifically, I use cotton towels that are white, and then I use microfibers that are yellow, and then I use them for different things. And if you're ever curious, for instance, let me give you an example. I use microfiber cloths with guitar polish to do the guitar bodies. I use microfiber cloths with no polish whatsoever to wipe down strings. I use cotton cloths, white cotton towels to put fretboard conditioner on fretboards. I don't use microfiber on fretboards. And then for those of you going, why? It's because those little stupid little microfiber, little yellow hairs get in your fretboard and little marks, and then you're picking them out of there. Because again, I'm waiting for the customer to come pick up a guitar, and I'm like, I don't want them to see this crap in their fretboard. So you clean it all out. So it's just, I find that the cotton towels don't leave as many fibers behind. So that's what I use. Again, trying, and a lot of these techniques I've used over the years is really more about, I was just trying to make a living making people happy with their guitars. So a lot of times when you ask me these questions, they are literally, yeah, here's a good idea, but also here's something I would suggest. Most of the suggestions I give to you, I don't know if they're good for you or not. You'll have to decide that for yourself. But if you're a guitar tech, they're absolutely good for you. And I believe that because I may not be smart, but I did make a good living as a guitar tech. So I know, and how you gauge success as working on guitars is repeat business. And my repeat business was very, very good. It's because they like my haircut. Anyways, okay. Let me jump over and grab one of these. Drink some water for a second. Okay. Also, Antique Rocker sent me a question earlier. I think emailed. Let me go over an answer I have. Let me see if it's Antique Rocker. I thought it was. If it's not you, I'm answering a question somebody asked. All right. I forgot who asked me this question. I apologize. It's probably Antique Rocker. Let's see if I'm right. Yes, Antique Rocker. I have the answer to your question. So Antique Rocker sent me a question saying, hey, there's a question from 5/7/2025. And he says, hey, did you find out the story behind StewMac's logo? What is your opinion of acoustic basses? Okay, that's two questions. I feel like that's like two for the price of one. No, I'm just kidding. So acoustic, let me start with the easy one. Acoustic basses, used to love them, used to play them. I used to have a Tacoma Thunder Chief, which was like, that's the holy grail acoustic bass in my opinion. It's one of the reasons why I hate the fact that Tacoma went away. It was just a fantastic bass. But I eventually sold it just because, the problem with acoustic bass for me is anytime I was going to jam with somebody and they were going to do acoustic set, they would like bring your acoustic bass. And then I would bring my acoustic bass with a small amp. And after a while, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to bring my regular bass. And then now what I do is I just turn the tone control back down, or I put a foam pad underneath the bass and mute the strings a little bit to get a little bit more, not acoustic sound, just a little softer tone. Or like I said, I've actually decided I like the tape wounds on a bass. So if you guys ever see my Stu Ham bass, you see it from time to time behind me. It has black strings on it. Those are tape wound strings. I have a video about that if you want to watch it, explaining why I use that. I prefer a tape wound string on a bass for an acoustic set. By far, I think it sounds really good. And the only thing you're missing is the aesthetics. I know that's part of having an acoustic bass, so you look like you're part of the group, but no one cares. No one's looking. Look, the kind of gigs I play, if you're lucky, there's 10 people, and if somebody looks up from their meal once, that'd be luck. Good luck. Anyway, so back to your other question. So his other question was about the StewMac logo. I actually reached out to StewMac. I talked to Brock. Brock is the VP of sales for StewMac. So what did Brock say? So let me just tell you what I sent him. If you guys remember a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the StewMac logo. Let's share that with you guys because somebody said, hey, the dots are in the wrong spot. And I hate that I can't find a bigger picture of this. You know what if I just type in StewMac logo? Sure. Okay, here it is. I found something. Maybe. Yeah, it's funny. Okay, let me just share this. All right, so here's the logo right here. And the question was, these two dots, if this is the 12th fret, this doesn't make any sense, either direction. this logo does not make sense. So some people were saying they thought it was a ukulele. Some people thought it was a banjo. I saw some people said it was Martin because Martin's have like that. I mentioned that I did a review of a guitar that had fret dots in this position. But what did Stu Mac say? What did the 30-minute discussion on a Friday about the Stu Mac logo yield? This is what it yielded. The official response from Stu Mac is, and I'm sorry if I'm doing this, I'm just trying to get back to the screen I was in. I said, "Hi, Brock. I have a question. It came up on the podcast. What is the Stu Mac logo guitar fretboard based on?" He said, "Hi, Phil. Stop sending me stupid questions." No, I'm kidding. He says, "Hey, Phil, it is part of the legacy of the evolution of our logo. It originally dates back to the 80s when it first appeared on the Stuart McDonald Guitar Maker Supply logo." For those that probably don't remember, because a lot of you guys are newer, and some of you guys, even that are playing guitar for 20 years, probably weren't guitar techs or into the guitar repair stuff like I was. Stu Mac, before it was a website, it was just like Carvin and like Musician's Friend. You would get your Stu Mac catalog sent to you, and you would dream about like, oh, calipers. So he's talking about originally like in the 80s and when they used to send out the books is what he's talking about that had the logo. So anyways, so back to his thing. So it first appeared on the Stuart McDonald Guitar Maker Supply logo, which would be on their books. At that time, it had more frets and more position markers. As decades ticked by, we simplified it into the version we have now. That's the answer. So it's a piece of a bigger fretboard picture they originally had. So I'm going to go stick with my original thought, which is it's based on some kind of Martin or something that had the double dots like we talked about. So that's the answer. It's an adaptation. It's in a redefined, smaller version logo, more succinct. I actually I think I did a pretty good educated guess. Remember, one of my guesses was somebody in marketing, probably they hired a marketing company who basically redid it. And that's basically what he's saying. It's been adapted, and that's why it looks like that. It's just, somebody did it. Somebody says, "What's a catalog?" I know, catalogs. Oh. Yeah, Brian says, "Dear Phil, you have a problem, signed Stu Mac." What's funny is this. What I told you was what I sent him and what he said back. What you didn't, if you were keen and paying attention, it's what he didn't say that says too much. His response was, "Hi, Phil," and then he answered the question. He didn't say, "Wow, that's a weird ass thing for a bunch of adults to be talking about on a Friday night." Like, notice he didn't even find it strange. He thought, yeah, that's what a bunch of nerds would talk about on Friday. By the way, I'm proud to be called that. I think so. So, okay. Oh my. Okay, Amanda, that's amazing. So Amanda says, "Catalogs are magazines for poor people." I had a lot of them. Amanda, you're really messing with my head because I had so many catalogs. Like, I would stare at, to me, it was the Carvin catalog and Musician's Friend catalog. I would reread them. And some people are going, what do you read? Anything they would print. I would just reread them over and over and over again and over again and over again. I would read a Musician's Friend catalog 50 times. I'm not exaggerating. I would just, every day, each page. What else? It's like what I read. Guitar magazines. I never had the money for a guitar subscription. Never. Well, not never. I mean, by the time I did, magazines died. By the time I could actually justify a subscription, but my favorite thing about traveling was anytime I traveled, I could justify buying a magazine. So I go buy the magazine. But so my favorite thing in the world is when the used bookstores took off where I live, like Bookman's and stuff, and that's where I would get all my guitar magazines. Go down there and get them for $1.50, $2. And I remember to this day, like you'd go in there and then there would be one with like, Slash on the cover, and it was like $3.50, and I was like, oh, $3.50. And then they'd have one with somebody I didn't care about, but it was like $1, and I was like, oh, I gotta get the dollar one. So you'd get the dollar one. But yeah, I just remember, catalogs were, is poor people's magazines is definitely, I never thought of it that way. It's kind of makes me sad, but also, it was great. The Matt Lewis experience at Sam Ash and the Musician's Friend catalogs were the best. Sam Ash, I would sign up to get a free catalog from Sam Ash, and I'd get one, and then I would never get another one for a long time. Like Musician's Friend, for those that remember this, do you guys remember the thing about Musician Friend that was crazy was there was two things that could find you anywhere. Like I would go, I'd leave, I join the army, I'm gone, and the Musician's Friend would find its way to the barracks. No change of address form, no nothing. Like Phil McKnight, this is to me it was Record of the Month Club and Musician's Friend would find you wherever you go. You could move 10 times and never do a forwarding address, and you would get your Record of the Month Club, and you would get your your Musician's Friend. That's what you'd get. Sasha says the Sears was a Wish book. So the Sears was the book that I think there was a J.C. Penney's book and a Sears book. That's what I looked for when I was a kid. I would look at the Sears book because that's where I would dream about the toys I wanted. Oh man, G.I. Joes and stuff, right? Luckily for me, a lot of kids that, for most of my life, my mom was a single mom. So a lot of kids, the great thing about G.I. Joes and stuff was effectively toys like Hot Wheels were a perfect thing. Buying a Hot Wheel or buying a G.I. Joe or a Star Wars figure was not a huge thing for my mom. She would buy me that. But play sets and stuff like that, you just what? You never get that. you had to make your play sets out of styrofoam cups and cardboard. But, so it's, so the catalogs were great for not only just dreaming of stuff, but blueprints. Cobra headquarters, and I'm gonna cut that out of cardboard. I'm gonna make that, and then steal all your mom's straws. My mom would be very upset. I would steal her straws all the time, straws are cannons. Stick a straw in a upside down styrofoam cup. That looks just like the cannons in Star Wars, and they could shoot each other. Okay. All right, I'm done with that. Let's go to talk about guitar stuff. Actually, let's do something even better than that.
Now it's time for Guitar of the Week.
Let's do Guitar of the Week. So Guitar of the Week is hilarious because someone brought it up earlier. So let me tell you what's going on. So if you guys recall, I did a video for Hills Guitars. So I got a Hills guitar, I did a video of it. Went over really, really well. It was one of those videos. It just got a lot of views, and everybody seemed to engage with it really well. But if you recall, there's more to the story. There's two things in the story. One, if you recall, I critiqued a few things. I reached out to Hills Guitars and said, hey, here's the issues I found. And they said, we're going to fix those issues. And a lot of you seemed really impressed with that attitude. They've reached out. They talked to me. We talked about could they send me the new guitar? I said no, I wasn't interested in that. So what's going to happen with Hills Guitar in the future is, I said, can you send me all of because believe it or not, it wasn't just my suggestions. They were going through the comment sections of the video and reading your suggestions. A lot of you guys were like, what's up with no lefty guitars? Why no 7 strings? Why no this? So I'll be doing an outline of all the things that they did to adjust and fix and improve our suggestions as a community. So that I'll be doing. But they did send me this, and I thought this is pretty funny. So they sent me a bass. They sent me a Hills bass. It's going to look familiar if you were here earlier in the show. This is a Hills bass, and it looks very 80s to me, but it looks cool. Now, I'm sharing this with you because it's pretty cool. But funny enough, when the comment came in earlier about the pickup and the sound, I find it's also very mid-heavy, which is why I adjusted for it in my EQ, in my mixer. Now, there's a couple things about this bass that are important. This bass to me is the ultimate bass if you're a guitar player. So I'm only going to play one, but I want to share you why this is important. So this bass is made in Indonesia. It's super light. I mean, it's super light. I would say 5.5, 6 pounds, it's super light. I mean, it's like air, okay? This is satin white, and they make it in satin black. By the way, that's that back compartment where I can tell you for a fact, because the controls are right here, and then the output jack's there. There's definitely got to be room for a battery. But Maybe I'll put a preamp in it and I'll share that with you guys, and we'll see. I don't know. But anyways, volume, tone, very basic. Individual saddles right here. And of course, one thing that the Hills guys do that I like is that even though it's headless, it hangs on a hanger. I know a lot of you guys that hate headless guitars are like, this thing is ugly. It is, but they stay in tune, they play great. What's great about this one is the 30-inch scale. And the other thing that's great about it is it's just like my Kiesel 30-inch scale bass. I know it's hard to see, but just understand they're the same size. These are both 30-inch scale basses. If you're going to ask me to compare them, I'm going to tell you right now, my Kiesel is way better, but it's also a little over $2,000 more. I'm not exaggerating. So yeah, if it's not better, that would be stupid. So this is 30-inch scale. This is $599. So one thing I don't understand, they put these cool rubber feet here, and then there's a way that way it can stand on the ground and lean it up against the wall. It's really cool. But if you leave a guitar jacket in there, then it doesn't work. Unless I guess you use it angled, but I didn't use it angled. I'm going to play it for you. So what do we have? We have a 5-piece neck. We have maple, walnut, maple, walnut, maple. We have a rosewood fretboard. We have 24 stainless steel frets. One pickup. We have a truss rod adjustment at the base. It's dual action truss rod. Very cool. And then I like the individual saddles. These are pretty cool. Very easy to adjust right here. They're not very hard. I know some people ask, are they really hard? They're not. They're very easy. And then again, what's great is they stay in tune. So that's why I like headless instruments. I play headless instruments way more than I thought I'd ever play. I'm backing up so I can switch cameras. There we go. Look at that. Sound would be good. Maybe. Huh. I have no sound. Why don't I have sound? Oh. I do. I have sound. I can hear it. You guys can't hear it. Let me adjust a couple things for you. Now, something to mention that's important is as you guys know, I've been writing songs and doing stuff, and you've been hearing those songs whether you know it or not on almost all my last, like, let's say 24 videos. Almost, I'd say not 80% of the songs I've been playing are from the tracks I've been writing for the album, which is just to have copyrighted material on YouTube. So anyways, my point is I've been recording almost everything solely on the Kiesel bass, which is 30-inch scale. So obviously I'm a fan of 30-inch scale, which is why I think, I don't think Hills made a 30-inch scale bass because of me, but I think they decided to do the push this model first because of the fact that I've hyped it up a lot. Remember, the Hills guys are a big fan of the podcast. And so a lot of what they've done is in reaction to stuff you've said. Let me play for you a little bit. I'll try not to mess it up. Okay, let's see what I can do. All right, ready? I'm gonna say this track. Let's see. Let's try it. Okay, now, what I thought would be fun, by the way, I'd like to point out two things. I need to improve this, but for some reason, I procrastinate every week, and I decide what the guitar or the bass of the week or whatever I'm going to do is usually decided about an hour for the show, and then I kind of lay up some tracks real fast and do this. And I think next week will be the first week. I think I'm going to try to do it by by Wednesday, so I know what is actually going on. But let me go ahead. I want to show you. I made a track real quick earlier, like literally why I was 3 minutes late to the show, with a guitar and a drum track, and I'm going to add the bass in, and I want you to hear how this bass, when I was talking about the sweet spot, right? The sweet spot pickup right here, I wanted to show you guys why I think it kicks in a mix really well. So let me go ahead and show you this track. Here we go. Now, another thing I want to show you is I was using a pick, but obviously, but I want to point out that this is why I'm saying I like this for guitar players. I've been preaching this for years. As you guys know, I've talked about the Ibanez 32-inch scale basses. I've talked about so many 30-inch scales, the Squire ones. I'm a big proponent of this. If you don't want to spend $600 for a fancy headless bass that sounds good and plays good, I understand that. I really recommend short scale basses. First of all, keep in mind that Sir Paul McCartney essentially played a shorter scale bass. A lot of players play shorter scale basses. I personally think shorter scale basses tend to have a very musical sound to them, more mids. They cut and mix really well. If you guys watch when I play with Larry Mitchell, I use my Warwick a lot. My Warwick is a 32-inch scale bass. It's not a full scale bass. Nothing wrong with full scale basses. I play them too. I love them. But what's great about for guitar players is I've said this for many times for many years, which is every guitar player is a bass player, just by how it works. So it's a lot easier. This scale length is very easy for most guitar players. You're not going to have a lot of problems on a 30-inch scale. I mean, it's just not. For those of you who are like, yeah, but it's still, let's say, 4.5 inches longer than a Strat. Yeah, but you're also not playing chords now. So you understand, you're not going to be, you're not doing any kind of weird, patterns like this, with your fingers sprawled out, like a spider. You're going to be mostly sticking to single notes at a time. And so obviously this works really good. And to get the muscle memory on a 30-inch scale is really nice. So that was really cool. I thought I'd share it with you guys. Let me unplug this. Again, the thing that's crazy is how light it is. The thing I don't know is I want to see, I thought, and we'll try see if we can confirm this. I want to go to their spec sheet and see if you guys don't mind. So what do we have? A C shape. I agree. It's a C shaped neck for sure. 30-inch scale. Yep. It's a truss rod. It's the standard type. It's a 4 bolt-on neck. Fretboard. Indian Laurel is the fretboard. So I was wrong. It wasn't rosewood. It's Indian Laurel. Light matte finish. 24 stainless steel frets. I was right about that. 12-inch radius. The nut is bone. Oh, I didn't remember that. It's really cool. Look at that. That's pretty cool. And then I didn't even notice that. All right, let's go back to this. Inlay is pearloid. Okay, hardware, Diodario strings, and okay, cool. So I was a little concerned. They shipped this to me and said, "Hey, would you check this out?" So you understand. This was very important. It was like, "Hey, give us some feedback on this bass." And I even made a joke. I said, "I can't give you feedback until Ralph plays it." I had Ralph play it. I said, "I'll kind of know if it's weird." My biggest concern, so you know, is that it's come on, man. This is a look, right? I don't detest it. I think it's cool. To me, it looks retro, not futuristic. To me, it reminds me of the 80s almost. But what's cool is it came with a deluxe gig bag, and I just didn't know if they sent it to me that way. But no, it comes with a deluxe gig bag. So $5.99 deluxe gig bag. I put a link down below if you want to use that link to check them out. I'd appreciate that. But can you bite the headstock? Probably. The one thing that's nice about it, let me show you this, is that because the way they designed it, it's like the Strandbergs. See how it sits up higher. It doesn't sit low because of the way they carve this out. And this is also probably important to show for those that are fans of Dr. Andre Flood's channel. You'll see why he'll like this here. So it sits here, this position. So you can play it, or look at that. And then now you're in this position, which is a very, very comfortable, especially if you slap like me. So very cool that it does the two different positions. So it's actually thought out. It's not just a goofy shape. It's there. You know what it reminds me of? Does anyone remember? Let's see how good some of you guys are. Does anyone remember this? There was a TV show in the 80s or maybe the 70s, and it was from space. And for some reason, the spaceships reminded me of this. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It wasn't Battlestar Galactica, but it looked like a cheap version of Battlestar Galactica. And it wasn't Buck Rogers. But anyone knows the answer, put it in the... But that's what that reminds me of. Because I remember the neighbor's kid had that toy, and it was white. It was off-white like that. And it was a spaceship. So it kind of reminded me of this. Kevin says, it's tough. It's thought out, and it's a goofy shape. It is a goofy shape. Look, I always think these guitars look like puzzle pieces to me, like they're missing puzzle piece. The great thing about basses like this, or guitars like this, as you know, I'm a fan of the E-Art guitars and, of course, Hills and stuff, is, look, and of course, Ibanez makes these too, so you know, but Ibanez's are $1,000, made in Indonesia. Nothing wrong with that, but to me, it's, Star Academy. I'm pretty sure you're right. Oh, you know what? Before I go on a tirade about that, can we look up Star Academy to make sure that I'm not crazy? Images. No, that's not what it was. Space show? It might have been. Come on, show the spaceship. Let's put spaceship. Let's see. Ready? Oh, it's close. This is close. But it's not it. All right. Okay. So, anyways, somebody says Mork and Mindy. Probably. Very Mork and Mindy. Jefferson spaceship. Suzanne says, where are Hills made? All Hills are made in Indonesia. Well, okay, take that back. Because my understanding is, so Hills is the same company as Hex. They don't hide that, by the way. So Hex is a Korean-based company. And then for distribution in Europe, pretty much everywhere other than the Asian markets, I believe. So US, everywhere else, it's Hills because of the fact that they told me I don't remember who, but somebody owns the trademark on the name Hex. So they couldn't use the word Hex. So if you look up Hex guitars, it's going to look like an identical company because it is. It's just Hills is the branding, HILS. But these are made in Indonesia. So $599 for this bass made in Indonesia with a deluxe gig bag. And the gig bag is great. It's the same quality that I did the review of the guitar. I plan to do a deep dive on this. There's a reason why I didn't do the deep dive. They didn't ask me to do a review. And I was like, I was going to do it. And so, I looked and it looked like, to me, some of these are out of stock and they get another shipment, a large shipment. It's just, I'm telling you, when I talked to the owner, he was saying they get a large shipment in the first week of April. So so I thought, okay, I don't want to do a deep dive and then you guys go and, not you guys specifically, this is a much smaller audience than a main video can pull. So I didn't want, somebody to be like, hey, they're out. So anyone interested, you get a heads up. So if you guys look and there's something out of stock, it's April's when they get their shipment. It's en route right now as we speak. So, which is when I'll drop the video of, I haven't got them yet, but they're going to send me their left-handed guitar. I'll have fun playing that. Their new 7-string and their new improved 6-string versus my feedback of that last video. And I'll put that all in one video and we'll go through that and stuff. So, lost in bass, lost in space, lost in bass. It's going to drive me crazy. You know what? Let's try this. Space show in the 70s with a white ship. Let's see what The internet does. Spaceships in the 70s. I'm pretty sure. Oh, we found it. What is it? I'm looking at it. I'm going to share it with you guys. Okay. The Eagle Transporter. Okay, ready? Maybe I'm crazy. I think this is what my neighbor's kid had this ship, as seen in space, 1999, a signature passenger ship model in space, 1999. So the show was called Space 1999. It said, oh, okay, there you go. That's what it reminded me of, because it was like, see the black, it had the white and the black, and it just kind of reminded me of that era. Like this base should, like that's, if there was a band on that ship playing music, they would have this bass. Space 1999. I just remember, like I said, it's one of those shows like you forget. I just remember because we didn't have it like we have now, where you can just watch whatever you want. Like it would come on and you'd see a couple episodes, and then they'd come on when your parents. I'm dating myself right now. They'd come on when your parents didn't let you in the house. I know I'm not alone. I know some of you guys understand what I'm saying when I say that. Like you weren't had to be at home by a certain time, and you weren't allowed in the house until a certain time. Okay. So anyways, but the neighbor's kid had that toy, and we would play with it all the time. Okay. All right, we got to get back on track here. I'm going to grab something Amanda sent. She'll always have us back on track. Let's see. Step Van Joe says, what actually kills the strings quicker, dirt or finger oil? Oils, I don't know the answer. I could pull, from my ass all kinds of theories, but that's all they are. My guess is anything that, causes the string to oxidize and, it corrodes essentially is what's happening, right? The metal's corroding. So I don't know, oils, dirt, all the above, water, moisture, all that stuff. It's metal. Everything that makes metal, everything that you want to keep away from metal, you just keep away from your strings. But I will tell you that your hands are the delivery system for most everything that's going to ruin the strings, which is why I say you should wipe them down. By the way, the better thing is wash your hands before you play. And if you can do that every time you play. But sometimes you have to understand, and I've talked about this before, this is absolute fact. There's just no way around this. Some players, just the makeup of their skin and like I have very dry hands. I've said this before. My hands are so dry I can't open those plastic bags at the in the grocery store. I just can't do it. In fact, my wife is so accustomed to it now. She'll go grab tomatoes and then she'll grab the bag and like open it and hand me the bag because she knows I'll be sitting there like this forever unless I touch. I usually touch they usually water the plants, so if I touch some water, I can get some grip. So that's my hands. Some of you have really oily hands. Some of you guys sweat a lot. You have really sweaty hands. I mean, and so all those things affect it. Some of you guys, have more acid in your sweat than others, right? It's usually what you eat and that's usually a big part of it. So that all changes the lifespan of a string. So, and I can tell you if you have any of those issues, just like I said, wash your hands and wipe your strings. So, all right. It says, Bob says, hey, Phil, can you recommend a guitar setup kit? Would like to learn to set guitars up. Yes. So I have been using the Music Nomad setup kit for a while now. This is, and I've had my ups and downs with it. I'm going to share it with you guys. Do I have a thing? By the way, if you guys choose to buy this from Sweetwater or Guitar Center, I don't think Guitar Center sells this stuff. If you could use one of my links, that'd be great. So I can get that 1% or whatever I get. Just kidding. I always say that, but then the truth is, I don't even know if they pay me. I'll pay me correctly anyways. I always feel weird sending you guys the stuff, and then I go, I don't even know if they're actually paying us half the time. You know what? Just thanks for being here. How about that? You can choose to buy it however you want. Okay, so Music Nomad kit. Let me show you the kit. Let me show you where I'm at with it. I will be doing a video on it. I have decided to do the video. Two things I will share with you guys right now. I will be doing two videos that will be out within 30 days, both. Hold Hold on. As you guys seen, the frequency of the videos have increased a lot. It's because I'm moving videos along faster. Hold on. Where's it at? Music Nomad setup kit. Come on, guys. You know, one day I want to have one of those cool podcasts where, like, you ever notice, like, the really fancy podcasts? People always have this, like, they always have somebody and they're always, like, named Steve or Mike or Dave or something. And they're like, Dave, look that up for me. And then they just look it up. I'm always looking up my own stuff. I'm like a... Sorry, I got jokes. Okay, the Keep It Simple kit. Okay, so we'll do Keep It Simple. Keep It Simple kit. Let me show you what I don't like about it so you have a heads up. I will be doing a video. They have a great video on it. I will tell you what my problem was. I've resolved the issue, and I don't know why it's a starter kit bundle. I don't want the starter kit bundle. They don't have just the Keep It Simple kit. Why is this such a problem? Keep It Simple. Yeah, every time I do it, it brings me this $160 thing. Probably because part of the problem is, there. You know why I'm doing this? I should drink some water or something. I just want the kit. Precision gauge set, no. I want the key. Do they not sell it individually? They have to sell it individually now. This is taking forever to get to. I might just give up and quit. There is no way that is buried this deep into the searches. Okay, I literally give up. I'm on Sweetwater and it's not coming up as a kit. It comes up as a $160 thing mixed with some other stuff, but I can't find it by itself. Guitar Tech kit, Precision kits, Ultimate Home Guitar Work-Bass Station kit. I don't know why it's not coming up as... So I'm going to share this stupid thing, but understand, don't buy this, whatever this is, this whole thing, unless you want to, I guess. So the kit specifically I'm talking about that I'm showing you right now is the Keep It Simple kit. I believe that kit is $70, right? I can tell you right now, you can choose. You can buy this kit, which is very overpriced. It just is, right? They set up the convenience for you. You can choose to buy the kit if you just want to keep it in a nice case and keep it all together. It's great. Or you can look at the kit specifically and then, which, like I said, I'm circling right now. So it's going to have the string action gauge. It's going to have the radius blocks. It's going to have some gap gauges. And then here's what I don't like about it. It comes with a guitar pick. And if you've seen how they do it, this is really pissing me off. Why? Guitar kit. Somebody's got to have it just by the kit. I want to know what it is by itself. Every single search is bringing me to this $160 bundle. I wonder if they stopped making it. I'm having the weirdest luck with Music Nomad today. Yeah. I'm going to go back to you guys. Is anyone else finding anything different? Somebody says, will it work on bass? Yes, it will work on bass because the string action gauges would be correct for bass, and the radius gauges will work, and then the gap gauges will work. Anyways, the problem is my problem with this, they give you this guitar pick essentially to work like a capo. Just use a capo. That's the part I don't like. I don't like the guitar pick. I kind of feel like, look, criticism is what it is. Here's my criticism to the Music Nomad guys. The Keep It Simple guitar setup kit is great. It's effective. It works. Especially if you watch any of the deep dive now, you essentially could use that to figure out, just let me keep it easy, to figure out exactly how I'm doing it from that. The problem I have is that for the price, see, Amazon has it for $59. Right, for $59, it's great, except for I think it should have came with a capo, not a guitar pick. I think that's kind of silly. I don't like using the guitar pick. Just use a capo. They want you to use the guitar pick like a capo on the first fret. Just use a capo. But it's a good kit. I used it over and over and over again and over and over again. And I told you I have my issues with it. There's a bunch of stuff, but essentially what I wanted to figure out, it was like, how effective was it? So I would go over, and it's effective enough for $60. I think that it's about the easiest thing I can figure out to send you guys. Like, in other words, if you're, sending you guys for information, that's about as easy as it comes to. So a lot of you guys are saying $60 on Amazon. So yeah, see, $59.99 on Sweetwater. I don't know why every time I'm searching on Sweetwater, it's taking me to this bundle, but $60 is what I remember. Actually, I remember it being more than that. So I wonder if the prices come down, but $60, it is. And if you look at it, and the reason I'm telling you this is because I just don't want to see in the comments like, Phil, this is like $3 worth of stuff. Kinda. But they put it together for you, and here's the real thing. To me, that string action guide is still the best one. I've been in meetings with the people at StewMac. I flat out told them to change their string action guide to a black one, and I wouldn't praise and market the Music Nomad one. Again, I told them I have no allegiance to either side. I don't really care, right? No, neither one of them's paying me anything. So I just won't recommend your string action guide, the StewMac one, because I don't like it, the black on silver. It's too hard for me to see. I like the black with the light. And I said, actually, you should make it luminlay. You should make it to where it's bright. It glows in the dark even, so that if they're shadowing, it'll pop out a little bit more. But they don't seem to be interested in it. I almost want to make one myself, but I would definitely want it luminlay. So like I said, when you have shadowing and stuff, it pops. So that's what I would recommend. Okay. And if I find the right link, I will. Well, here, you know what? Let's do this. Look. Okay. Something is seriously wrong. I'm not making this up, guys. Because I just put it in Amazon and it comes up as that $160 kit. Yeah. I don't know how you guys found. I don't know what it is that's happening on my search on my computer, but every time it pulls me to this 159 and it's all 3 kits in one. I don't know. All right. Well, I'll put a link later then if I find it. But that's what it's the KISS system. So, all right. Let's go to another topic. The next topic is hello, bro. I'm gonna try to do the name because it's funny. It's Gruto Baka. This is my best guess. Hello, bro. I am a guitar beginner. I can play normal song, but it feels like I'm stuck in progress. That happens a lot. Happens to all of us. And the best advice you could ever get is this: there's nothing wrong with being stuck. When I say nothing wrong, meaning it's going to happen no matter where you're at. Beginner, advanced. I don't know if you've been playing for 50 years or if you're playing for 5 years or 5 months or 5 weeks. Everybody gets uninspired, or they get stuck, or they get in a rut. It happens all the time. There is a ton of great advice, and every time I give some advice, you'll always get tons of great advice in the comment sections as well. One thing I will say is there's nothing wrong with stepping away from the instrument. Sometimes the best inspiration is just to get away from something, right? It's funny is there's a couple of things. First, I always say this: you can always try listening to some new music and looking for inspiration. But sometimes the problem is looking for inspiration is like looking for love. If you try really hard for it, it's hard to find it. So sometimes the best thing you can do is just get away from your guitar and do other things. And I find that sometimes when I'm doing something else, all of a sudden I'm like, if I had my guitar right now, I'd play this or I'd figure this out. So it's okay to take a little break. The fear I think people have is that when you take the break, you're like, what if I never come back? You will come back. It doesn't take much. It happens all the time. I have to do this so not only have I had this problem for guitar, but for years now I've had this problem on YouTube. I don't have an idea for a video for next week. Should I do a review or should I do an instructional, or what's the reason for doing this? And I find anytime I'm in that block, I'm very frustrated. I'm not going to sit there and go, it's no problem. I just tell myself, no, I'm very upset. I'm very stressed. And what I do is I get away. I go for a walk, I go for a drive, I go on a vacation, I do something, whatever, I focus on other things. I work on tasks that are more less artistic and more just functional. Cause obviously sometimes I'm like, well, I still got to make money. So what can I work on while I'm not focused or don't have any inspiration? And I find the further I get away from it, the more I'm like, oh man, why didn't I think of that? I can't wait to get back to it. So same thing with music. It's okay to be in all kinds of ruts when you're artistic. You're artistic. Nobody can be artistic all the time. The best advice I got, the best advice I ever got as a YouTube creator was that if you keep going, if you keep playing guitar all the time, if you keep making videos all the time, you will burn out. There's just no way around it. You cannot be creative 24/7. It's just too much. It's too taxing. So stay away. Just take a break. That's my best advice. But again, there. That's my advice. Okay, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I'm just reading questions real quick. Okay, here's one. Irregular Star says, hey, Phil, I love your show. Sweetwater has a deal where they're selling Guild Starfire for $999. What is your opinion about this guitar and this price point? Also, it turns out they're discontinued now. I don't know. Guild is one of those brands. The one thing I've been focused on is trying to get more brands that are not normally in the YouTube routine. In other words, it's not hard to figure out what brands are in the YouTube routine. What I mean by that is all the YouTubers, just this is what we talk about. The question that comes up a lot, it's very valid. It's a great question. It's like, like when you guys said, how come no one does videos of Rickenbacker? And I said, it's because no, Rickenbacker doesn't send the guitars out. It's like, it's hard to buy a guitar and then make a video. So actually, let me put it this way. When I say that, I don't want you to think I'm complaining. I'm not complaining. I want you to understand it's literally impossible for most 75% of channels out there. It's impossible. It's not even something they can consider to do. You cannot buy a $1,000 guitar, sell it for $700 and make $40 on a video. It's just not, it's not going to happen. So small channels have it the hardest to do this. As the channel's gotten bigger over the years, if you notice one thing is for sure is the more I've pulled outside of the typical sponsored norms. It's because I have the luxury and the privilege, thanks to you guys, the patrons, the people who watch the content. Because like I said, my majority of my money comes from video views, then patrons second. And I've said this all the time. It's not to brag. I just want you to understand. It's not a brag. It's just how the channel's set up. I make my money mostly off YouTube videos, then Patreon, then merch and sales, like affiliate sales, and then sponsored content. Sponsored content is last for me, which is great. I'm very, very happy that it works that way. However, it also makes it tough, for a lot of channels to pull stuff like Guild and companies who are not interacting as much. So to answer your question, I'm not familiar with them at all. They're not a company that doesn't interact with social media, and they just weren't on my radar. This is why the Friday show has been so valuable to me. Is a lot of times when you guys, like you right now, Irregular Star, when you bring this up, this gets on my radar. Because you think because I talk guitar all the time, I'm aware of every brand all the time. Some things, to be honest with you, I knew Guild got bought and got kind of brought back in the last 5 years or so, but I forget. Sometimes I'm like, oh, did they go out of business? I don't even know because I don't see them. Like you guys, it's, all you see is the same. I feel like we all see the same 12 brands on YouTube all the time. It's a little much. So I'm really trying to pull outside of that. And also keep in mind that one of the downfalls of channels that do make a living on the views, like I do, one of my downfalls is picking strange things kills your view counts, and then it's hard to finance that too. But we do have the. I just want to let you guys know because the patrons know this. One of the patrons asked me to review a new Lutherie tool, and we bought it, and I have it, and I've been using it, and you'll see a video of that probably within the next week. I can't imagine it's going to be longer than a week now because I've already done I've done everything with it. So suggest things is what I'm trying to say. Email me. I know sometimes you don't get responses, and maybe you're like, okay, you didn't respond, but a lot of you will will publicly say this. A lot of you sent suggestions to us, never got a response to us, but that video was definitely put out, and it was because you suggested it. So suggest guitars. If Guild is what you're interested in, let me know. So to give you an idea, a couple weeks ago, was it a couple weeks ago? Time is weird, right? A month ago, a year ago, weeks ago. It was definitely a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I still have it. I have these funds, and I'm like, oh, I could buy some guitars and put them on the channel. And I went to the traditional, companies. I went to Sweetwater and looked, what they have, and then I look at guitars and what they have, and then I hit some mom and pop stores. What do they have? And I couldn't think of anything. I was like, I don't know. What do you guys want to see? Because again, I don't want to buy a guitar that I don't really care to buy and make a video that no one wants to watch. What's the point of doing that? I want to make content you guys want to watch, you're interested in, subjects that's interesting to you, things that are interesting to you. So I do have like Fred Flintstone says, what about bootlegger guitar? That sounds like a great suggestion. Let me put it down there. And so, like I said, and what I do, because what's great is some companies, I'm sorry, I'm just putting this in my, pasting it. Some companies suggest I could buy the guitars and we can do the videos, and then you guys could, you get the content you want. And some companies, believe it or not, we reach out to them. We say, hey, look, somebody asked us about your brand. Would you like to send a guitar out? I'm very upfront about, like some YouTubers, like this is what I charge and this is what I don't charge. I don't have any upfront costs. I don't talk. I don't know. I'm not upfront with what I charge, because what I charge is decided by the situation. What I mean by that is, if I want the video, then I don't charge. I want the video. That's what matters to me. So for instance, if you want the video, then I want the video because you'll watch it. And if you'll watch it, that's how I'll make my money. And I get to have fun doing a video. If I don't know you want it and a company asks me to do it, well, then the company's got to compensate us because it's my time and I don't know if the video is going to perform, and I don't know it's going to perform because I don't know if you care. So that's all. So that's my thing on that. The reason I say that is because sometimes companies seem confused by this. They reach out and they're like, hey, you said you'll do a video for free. I'm like, well, not because you asked me. If the viewers want a video, I would gladly do the video. But if a company wants a video and I don't think the viewers are going to click on it, then yeah, you have to co-sponsor with me. I have to have the cost covered with so that the time is covered. And then hopefully it'll work out for both of us. You'll sell some guitars and I'll get some views. But the downfall of so you guys know, the downfall of the deep dives is it's hit or miss. Some deep dives sell so much good gear, the company can't believe it, and they're amazed and they're happy. In some videos, I just said the right thing. When I say right thing, I mean the wrong thing. The thing I critiqued was just the thing that really broke the video from selling tons of gear. You never know what critique is not going to matter to some of you and what one's going to kill the sales. So tough. All right, there's enough of that. Somebody says Jennings guitars? Huh, that's interesting, Kyle. I've never heard of them. Okay. All right, hold on a second. Just reading a bunch of stuff. See, I think I get sidetracked reading your comments. Okay, let's go back. We have a comment from Matthew. This was sent by Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. It says, why is lighter fluid okay to use on Nitro finish, but everything else in the world seems to wreck it? I don't know. I'm not a finish guy. That's something, though, I can find out for you. I can ask my finish friends. Although using lighter fluid on fretboards is very common to clean fretboards, but it's not a finish, of course. It's unfinished wood. But I don't know. Finish work is not my thing, but I'll find out. As you guys saw, some of you guys watched the video with John from Throwback Pickups. That was amazing to do that podcast with him. That was a bonus podcast this week. If you missed it, you should watch it. Look, he's amazing amount of knowledge. If you weren't paying attention to some of the things that he said in there, it was things that could have broke the internet. He has a lot of great information, and some of the stuff was so enlightening. It changed my perspective of everything, and then some things were just fun. But I tend to like to pull experts in areas, and so maybe I'll get a finish expert, and we'll do a bonus podcast on finish work. So, all right, let's go here. Whoops. This one came from Fred. He says, hey, Phil, is the PRS SE Hollow Body 2 piezo still a good? I just mess with you guys so you guys know. I'm never going to stop doing this because I told you guys, I did a video, just on a side note, I did a video called How Companies Say Their Names. That's what broke me. I thought it'd be fun to ask companies how they say their names. If you watch that video, half of the comments are like, they're wrong. I'm like, they're wrong. You're saying the company that's saying their own name is wrong. So I've learned now, I'm just going to keep messing with people. I think it's funny. And it's one of the things I can do to make myself laugh. Okay. So anyways, he wants to know if it's still a good buy for today. I'd like to install the pickup in a guitar, basically a transducer pickup, but I'm not sure whether it's better to modify a Gibson Les Paul or buy another guitar. I'm not a big fan of modifying guitars with transducer pickups. The reason being is that I have guitars with transducer pickups, and in my personal opinion, based on the fact that let's say I have a guitar that I have a pickup that I like. Okay, so let's start there. Something easy. Let's take just a basic Seymour Duncan JB in a jazz set of pickups. I like that set. It's a good basic set of pickups. I like it. I throw it in a guitar. Let's say I throw in a Les Paul. I like it. If I add the transducer system, right, which is an active system, now the magnetic pickups have to go into everything has to go through that preamp. Okay, so that the levels are lined up. Otherwise, the passive pickups and the active transducers pickup is going to be a different line. They're going to be different levels. So everything goes there. In my opinion, it always ruins the magnetic pickups. It's always worse. It's never better. It's one of the things I don't like about transducer pickup systems in guitars that have both systems. So me personally, to tell you personally, adding it's not something I prefer. If you're right now and you're like, I do it on my guitars, I love it, I'm happy for you, and it doesn't make you wrong, I'm just telling you why I don't like it. So I'm not a big fan of adding it to something because of the fact that it will change the way it sounds, and usually, in my opinion, not for the better. However, I do have mini guitars that have that blending system because it's very good. It's like very, very versatile, and it's fun. So I prefer having guitars that already have it in there, and then that way I don't have a reference of whether or not the guitar sounds better or worse. I just play the guitar and like it. To answer your question, I have to look. Let's see. I'm going to go on Reverb now and look up what a PRS Hollow Body 2 is going for, SE. So when they were $1,500, they were not a good deal, but they were what they were. But for a while, you could get them for a song. You can get them for a deal. This is a soft market. You should be able to scoop them up for a deal. I'm curious to see what they're going for. And Hollow Body 2. So $12.99 used. Okay, $12.99 is high for you. Oh, this is not used. This is a dealer that definitely wants to offload a guitar. That's It's a store demo. Okay, so here's the deal. So let's go here. Here's a store. It's got a used mint, $12.99, calculating shipping. And then it says here, the PRS, it's a guitar. It was a demo in our retail store. It is mint condition. It shows no dings, dents, scratches. Okay. So what I would do, me personally, is I would look out there. There's dealers with these guitars that would love to get rid of them right now. $1,500 is a hard price point to sell. It's a guitar that's essentially is an import guitar. It's made in China, which is that's not the negative part. The negative part is just $1,500 made in China is expensive. And when the market softens, people get really weird about their money, and they're like, okay, they not only do they buy less expensive guitars, but then they get really picky about what they buy that is expensive. So, and what I've seen is this guitar in particular is very soft in the market. In other words, there's a lot more of them than there is customers. So if you're interested in it, I would say get it and go find a deal. By the way, Rodney's saying he bought one new for $1,100 a year ago. I think you could find one for $1,100, no problem, new, or ish. You know what I mean? Given you got to look. Okay, go out there and find one. Get one used, get one new. But either way, you'll find a deal for sure. Because of the fact that it's, like I said, it's a little soft on the market for guitars like that. That's just my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. But I like the guitar. That's the important part. I really do. I really think it's one of the best PRSs I've ever played, period. I'd put it in my top 5 PRSs I've ever played in my life, and it's an SE. Think about how crazy that is. Clan of House Cats says, is it good to shield tape a Fender custom body? Sure, you could shield tape it. It doesn't hurt anything. I don't know of a scenario where if you were to ever sell your custom shop Fender used that, if somebody's like, oh, it's got shielding tape inside the cavity, I take off $100. I don't know why anyone would want to decrease the quality of that for our value for that. Also, it's removable because it's just tape. You're just going to stick it in there and use it in there. But I would say that even if I did, well, let me put it this way. I wouldn't caution you if you came to have me do it. Like if you said, hey, Phil, can you put shielding tape in this cavity? I wouldn't go, okay, but just so you know, you're devaluing your guitar. That's not a disclaimer I would say to you. I'd say, sure, yeah, do it. And then I'd almost say, if you ever sell the guitar, I wouldn't mention it. I wouldn't even care. Or, mention it. It's like, hey, you can have it or I'll take it out if you want. But no, and it's so I don't think it's a bad idea at all. There. This one came from Unplayed Video Games. Says, hey, Phil, is it true that you should not adjust the tremolo mounting posts for overall action without completely detuning the strings first? Will it really strip the knife edges to do so? Okay, so this is where it gets a little tricky. The right answer is yes, you should not only detune your strings, but you should relieve the bridge of the spring tension as well. You don't, because the springs and the strings are both pushing the bridge. They can be both pushing it towards the post, the knife edge. Typically, it's the strings doing it, and then when you relieve the strings, the springs pull back on the bridge, and the bridge is being pulled away. But either way, there's some tension going there, so you want to decrease that. So sometimes, you want to do it from both sides, but at the very least, which is most cases going to be enough, do just the strings. Yes, relieve the string tension before you make the adjustments. The problem now is all the metals are really soft. They're not very good anymore. They're not really hard like they used to be. And even back then, I wouldn't even really recommend it, but I mean, you could. I will tell you though, because I want to give you two answers that are contradictory to each other, but I think it's just a real life answer. To a customer's guitar, if it wasn't mine, I'd always detune the strings. We're going to do it the right way. That's the right way. Me personally, my guitar, it depends how much I'm turning the posts. If I have to just go like a quarter turn on one post or two, I may not go through the whole process of detuning it because I'm not saying it won't do any damage. I feel like I'll be fine. But I would say to you, always take caution because once you mess up the knife edges on the bridge, you are going to mess with the tuning stability, which is problematic. And it's very hard in today's world to fix. It used to be super easy. Now it's more of a pain in the ass because like I said, it's not about, the metals are so soft. They're so bad. It's just all junk. Everything's IKEA furniture now. Everything. I feel like everything is IKEA furniture. It's just so bad. Okay. Jeremy says, hey, Phil, I bought a new Wolfgang and the string height on the high E will not go lower than 2 millimeters at the 12th fret. The bridge is down all the way and the neck is straight. Is this a design issue? No, if the bridge is all the way down, right? It doesn't, this is what you want to shim the neck. So that would be the next step. Now, again, I'm not looking at your guitar. You're giving me a scenario. I'm picturing in my head and I'm giving you my pictured in my head version of this. I always say this is my disclaimer, but just from what you described, my instinct would be to shim the neck. I would use one thin piece of sandpaper. Some people use a business card. I just use sandpaper because that's what Fender used forever. I always say that over and over again because it's true. Pulled 100 pieces of sandpaper out of Fender necks. Use just a little piece of sandpaper towards the back of the neck. That's probably what I would do first. You might be prepared to put 2 pieces, maybe. And believe it or not, that little thing, you're like, that's not enough. Like, because in your mind, you're like, but it's this far away and that piece of paper is this thin. It doesn't matter. Trust me. You just do that, bolt the neck back down, tighten it back up. And then that way you can raise the bridge a little bit. And, or sometimes you're just lucky and that's just where it lands and you don't have to move the bridge. But most cases, you'll be moving the bridge up a little bit to get the action where you want. And that'll get you where you want it to be. So that's it. It's a pretty straightforward fix. The thing I'm going to tell you that is important is this is a very common fix. It's why Leo Fender wanted a bolt-on neck, okay, or screw-on neck. If you read any of the books about Leo Fender, he's talked about it in detail. This is literally what he thought was like great because instead of a guitar like with a set neck or a neck through design when it had issues like what you're talking about, you'd have to pull the neck off. You have to delaminate, pull the neck off, right? Make some changes, glue the neck on. It's a very big process, very problematic where, again, a bolt-on neck can literally just be unscrew it off, stick some paper in there, and fix it. You can buy the wood shims and stuff. It's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do. By the way, but me personally, I just use sandpaper. I don't buy the wood shims. The only time I buy the wood shims is if it's a really, really big problem. But my guess is if you're at 2 millimeters, even if you want to get to like 1 millimeter or 0.75, which is about as low as you're going to get, no one's ever asked me this all these years on the show. Like, what's the lowest action I've ever seen? The lowest action I've ever seen with no buzz that played great was 0.5 millimeter high and was on a Jackson Soloist made in the 80s neck through. It played flawlessly with no issues, no buzz, and literally when we measured it, it was 0.5 millimeter. It was crazy. I have seen tons of guitars from Tom Anderson, from Ibanez, made in Japan era, Jackson USA, Charvel USA, tons of guitars, especially older ones where, again, 0.75 action was very typical and there was little to no buzzing on the neck. So my answer to you is, if you're at 2 millimeters, you're probably not wanting much more than a 1 millimeter action. Even on the Wolfgang, you'll be able to get that by shimming it. So I wouldn't worry, and you wouldn't even be able to notice you're not going to see a gap. So don't worry about it. But I think it's totally fine. It's to me, the way I look at repairs is in two different buckets. Okay. There's cost to consumer bucket. So notice if I complain about something, I might say something like, this is unacceptable for guitar. The reason I'm saying that is, look, if a customer pays $300 for a guitar and it's $300 worth of work, it's just not a reasonable thing to ask the customer to do. It's like buying a $30,000 car and saying it needs $30,000 worth of work. It's like it's not going to be, it's not going to work. So I'm a little bit more critical of that. But guitars that typically just have a quick things like that, like a shim and stuff, I'm not really concerned about that. To me, bigger items are things you can't do. You don't need to take it to a tech to put a shim in it. You can do that yourself. Okay. We have Jeff. Jeff says, hey, I have a Fender Players 2 Strat, and what size truss rod tool is needed to set it up, as I did not get the wrench when I bought it? Well, Jeff, what I want to share with you, because I could tell you the answer, but instead I'm going to show you where to get the answer because of the whole feed a fish. You know how the saying, right? You give a guy a fish and he's going to eat fish. And if you teach a guy to fish, he's never going to be home on Sundays. So I'm pretty sure that's the saying. Anyways, let me share this with you. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so what you do, Jeff, is you go to musicnomad.com's website and you say, I don't want to join the blue team, whatever that is. You want to go here to how to advice, okay? And you want to go to truss rod wrench finder. And you're going to select a brand. And you're going to say Fender. Okay. And then you can see here all models. You said Players 2, so we're going to say all models made in Mexico. And Fender, all models Mexico, 3/16 Allen key. Look at that. And not just plugs Music Nomad, but they sell this kit here, right here, which is pretty much every truss rod tool you'll need for $59. Do you need this? Well, hell no. You can buy all those Allen wrenches and tools for like literally dollars and stick them in a little Ziploc bag if you want. But, hey, they did it. But my whole point about this stuff is I always show you guys, like, look, if you notice, and this kind of goes back to the podcast I did with John at Throwback Pickups. Something I've noticed that's interesting is that people who are really smart, who create really interesting and really quality products, like the Music Nomad guys or the Throwback Pickup guys, and there's tons of them that I could suggest like this. Yeah, they always tend to charge more than everyone else, but always tend to give the information away free. And I always think to myself, Stu Mac, they charge a lot, but they give all the information away for free. And I always think it's funny when people get upset about their prices. I'm like, but you understand, they give the information away for free. Most people are trying to charge you for this information. They will give the information for free. And if you then so choose to buy their price, higher price product, great, but you don't have to. So the thing with the Music Nomad, you can go to their website, use that tool, that tool, lookup tool, find the truss rod for most guitars. It's not going to be every guitar, but it's a large amount of them. And there's your information. So you know, for future reference, too, one thing that we did, which is inspired kind of by the Music Nomad guys, is that's why we started doing this, which is if you go to the Know Your Gear podcast website and you go to Geeky PDFs, when you go here, all the guitars I review now, they're in order from when we started doing this, and it has the sheet on the guitar. So like, for instance, if you had this Yamaha Pacifica right here, you can go here and go to the next page, and it's down here, and it will tell you that, what will it tell you? It will tell you, I say that and then I messed it up. Does it have that? Oh no, it's on the next page. Okay, cool. Sorry. Let's do it. There it is. Okay, so it's the Ibanez. So we haven't updated the Yamaha page, which is good. I'll make sure I do that tonight. So if you go to the Ibanez standard that just came out, if you look here, we put all the specifications, but one of the things we started adding is, look at that. Bridge saddle wrench size is a 1.5 millimeter, and the truss rod wrench size is 4 millimeters. It's actually 14. Look at that. See? This is why you trust Music Nomad, not us. No, seriously, it's just our sheets haven't updated yet. We're probably in there. I was in there editing them, and we haven't updated. But my point is, we started adding this kind of information for that exact reason. So if I review a guitar, whatever came with the guitar, we're now documenting what came with the guitar on those sheets, so that if you buy that guitar and it didn't come with something, let's say you bought it used, or just the retailer didn't include it, you can look up the sheet and go, okay, what was supposed to come with this? So, I'm actually doing that not on just Allen wrench, stuff like that, like hang tags, all that stuff. What was supposed to come with the guitar? So we're on the sheets. We're not only putting the specifications of all of the details I find on the guitar, including the details that are different to the manufacturer, which, by the way, it's already happened. Think how crazy this is. Since doing the sheets, 3 manufacturers have had to adjust their websites to our information because their information was incorrect. I sent it to them. I said, this is what I found. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And every time they sent back, oh yeah, they always have the same answer. The person who does our website, which I kind of understand because I don't do my own website either. So the person who did our website didn't do it right. So my point is, that's where I'm trying to keep that information for you guys, so you know to look for it in the future as we gain momentum. Somebody asked if I'm going to go back now and in the past and do all the videos. Probably. But remember, I got to have I'm not saying the free time. Trust me, I have downtime like anybody else. I just got to wait for that downtime to kick in, and I'll go back and start doing older ones. But from now on, we'll do it forward. But in the meantime, for your Allen wrench needs, you can look up the Music Nomad. Let's go back. You get the idea. You can go to their truss rod wrench finder, which I've mentioned many times, and look it up to your specs. Hero of the day says, hey, you ever happily overpaid for a piece of gear you just loved? All the time. All the time. So let me read the rest of yours, and then I'll give you my answer. I got a Rittenhouse Strat a year ago, definitely overpaid for the brand I had never heard of, but I just love it, and I had to have it. I overpay for gear, I would say on average more than I underpay for gear by far, which is why I hyper-focus. What I've learned, everybody's going to have a different philosophy on this. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes they have what you want and they won't budge. Sometimes people are nuts. They're just nuts, but they have what you want. So a good example is like they have the guitar I want, they have the color I want, and the weight I want. No one will pay for this because most people don't have weird hangups like I might have about like I want the guitar to be a certain weight or I want it to be a certain color. And they're not budging on the price, and they're just not going to budge. And so I go like, I want it. So I pull the trigger. It's why I try to find a deal when I can, because what I kind of look at is an overall thing. So, I kind of look at it as overall. So I will, I put all my purchases into an Excel spreadsheet. All the guitars I ever bought, they go in this sheet. And I go, this is what I paid. And then if I got rid of it, I go, this is what I sold it for. And this is what I lost, or this is what I netted. And, this is what I gained. And I'm talking about more personal than I am the business side, but definitely personal for sure. And I do that just because, again, I'm trying to figure this out. So yeah, it happens a lot that I overpay all the time. And so way I justify overpaying is because I underpaid somewhere else. I kind of look at it. I think maybe that's just what Sean says. The IRS wants to see the sheet. Trust me, the IRS sees everything. There's one thing I know: I'm paying enough taxes. When I say enough, I'm sure they could find a reason to pay more, but we pay a lot. I pay a lot. It's insane. So, anyways, back to paying and underpaying, overpaying. The reason I do that is because it helps justify. It's nice when I buy a guitar. Let's say it's everywhere's asking $1,000, and I got into it for $600, and I'm like, oh, that's a good deal. And then it's a lot easier to justify the whole. Like everybody's asking, 12 for this guitar, and this guy wants 15 or 16, and he just doesn't budge. It happens all the time. So the problem is that when you overpay, what I tend to do is go, okay, and I have a bunch of guitars that I happen to me all the time about. I'll go, all right, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to overpay for it, but I know going into it how long I have to sit. Like, in other words, if I get this guitar. If you're so inclined to be in this situation, not everybody is, okay? It took me a long time to get to a situation to tolerate this kind of craziness, which is I buy a guitar, I probably overpaid. I have a guitar where I overpaid $1,000 for it, $1,000 over what it's worth. I cannot get anything close to what I paid for it right now, and I don't love it. And I'm not going to sell it because no one's going to pay me what I paid for it. So luckily for me, when I bought it, I knew two things. One, I might not like it, which it's not that I don't like it, I'm just not in love with it. And two, I might have to sit on it for 5 to 10 years. And I don't even know in 5 to 10 years if it's going to be worth what I paid. I just think it'll be closer. So it happens. It just happens. So yeah. Now, most of the time when I overpaid, I was more than happy in the idea that I got it, and I was like, okay, this is exactly what I wanted, and it's really great. So it happens to all of us. Yeah. You guys, it's funny. Windsurf Maui says, when he says IRS, he means your wife. In other words, my wife's my wife does not care what I spend on guitars. At all. I wish, look, she's done some podcasts with me. If you guys go to the second channel, you can watch them. They're audio only. She will only do audio only. She's very upfront about this. Like I said, look, she was in the public for 13 years at the store. Everybody who's a customer of the store knows my wife very well. She ran the lesson program. I've said this before. She ran the lesson program at the store, which is more important than the store because in the idea what I'm about to explain, because hundreds and hundreds of students came every week, right? And so over the years, thousands of students have transacted through this lesson academy, and they know my wife. So if we go to the grocery store, my wife gets more recognized, or as recognized, I'd say almost as much as me from YouTube. Like people go, oh, it's the guy from YouTube. But every time I get that, my wife will be like, hey, it's Mrs. McKnight. And they know her from the store. The sad thing is that half the time my wife's in shock because she doesn't know who's talking to her, because it's usually somebody who came to our store when they're 13 and now they're in college, and she doesn't recognize. She's like, oh my God, there's no way you're Billy, right? Whatever. But anyways, my point is, from that experience, which she does not dislike, by the way, she just does not want more of that. And that's what she's learned. She's like, I don't need to be recognized anywhere I go, even if it is because of a lowly, YouTube status thing. But my point is, so she'll do audio only podcasts. You can listen to them on the second channel. They're totally free. You don't have to be a patron. We do them from patrons, and then we give them to the second channel. The reason I tell you that, she'll explain to you in detail what she cares about and doesn't care about when I spend. Why you guys would care about that, I don't know. Maybe you'd want your wives to hear it. I don't know either. But my wife is the first one to say something when somebody says, like, you don't need another guitar. My wife will explain why guitars, in my wife's opinion, and I don't know I'm speaking for her, but it's true. In my wife's opinion, buying guitars is a good thing. Because of what I said. Yeah, I've lost money on guitars. She'll tell you, because I've showed her, and she's seen it over the years, and she knows, because like I said, she's dealt with all those crazy people because she worked in a store dealing with all of us. She can tell you that overall, worst case scenario is almost net flat. Like you just don't lose money on guitars for the most part. You just don't, especially as you get good at. Not good at buying guitars, but as you get good at figuring out what really matters, to you, so notice how I'm speaking now. And this is very important. A lot of people don't understand there's guitar flippers. There's people who make money buying and selling guitars, especially in the vintage market. I'm not talking about getting good at buying a guitar and selling it for money. What I mean by you refine your ability to not sell your guitars, to keep them. See, she's learned it. Remember, she's known me since I was 13 years old. So what she's learned is, as I've learned more about guitars over the years, the guitars I purchased slowly don't get flipped as much because I've figured, I refined exactly what it is I'm looking for. So, Sean says she doesn't care because you're not broke. You know, what's funny is that, Sean, you would really enjoy what she has to say about that. I almost don't want to tell you what she was specifically asked that question on the second show, on the other channel. She was specifically asked, you know, when I bought guitars when we were broke, what she thought about that. She'll tell you. I don't want to give you the guys the answer, but it was a great answer. I didn't expect her to say it. But anyways, back to refining. Like I said, you kind of learn what it is you want, and then they stick. The one thing that's funny is this, and I always say this just to be clear, because I love hanging out with you guys. I love being part of a guitar community, and I love making content for everybody. The one thing that I always kind of want to reiterate, sorry about that, with everyone is that sometimes my YouTuberness, the making content for a living, and me as a guitar fanatic, they blend together and it confuses people. So here's what I will tell you guys that's interesting. If you go and look at my first videos, take the first 20 videos that I made on YouTube, 99% of the gear that's in those videos still here today. You'll still see it on the channel. You still see it in the background. It's here. The gear that's rotating all the time, it's the gear that I'm using to make content with. That's what really goes. So a lot of people are like, you sell a lot of your guitars. Not really. Almost all my personal guitars they're here. They're still here. My copper Strat's still here. My green Strat's still here. My original Parker's still here. My original Les Paul's still here. My Mira's still here. You know, my 68 Princeton's still here. My Mark V 25 Mini's still here. I mean, it's most of the stuff I stick with. I've been sticking with stuff for, a decade, no problem. So again, it's just, but before in the time, besides, financial issues. I mean, sometimes, like I've told you guys, sometimes I had to sell everything because of financial issues. That happens. And then hopefully as you get older, that's less of that, but not always the case. But that's a different scenario than what I'm talking about. Bridge of Fire says, do you list guitars that you're trying to sell? I do. I have a public reverb store. It is the KYG store. Usually in some of the videos, there's a link. If not, I'll put a link to it. And I post it. And because obviously this is where I said, sometimes you have to, I be upfront. The YouTuberness of it, I tend to flip all that stuff really fast. I have been putting for about the last month or two a guitar a week up on the site. So there's a couple reasons we do that, so and then I'll go to the next question. We'll button up the show. I just wanted you to understand what's being sold on the reverb store. Sometimes I have guitars that I just done with and I sell them. That happens. Like I said, I'm just like everybody else. That's what gets sold there. Sometimes a company sent a guitar and they left it with us, and essentially like that's our compensation. Like we get to have the guitar. We made the video, and I can tell you right now, it's a mental thing for me. It's really tough. Somebody's like, oh, did you not like that guitar? If you look at a video, I can tell you exactly, just do the math. If you look at a video and I got compensated the guitar, in other words, they sent the guitar and they said you could just hold on to it for doing the video. If you look at that video and it did not do really well, I always sell the guitar. It's mental for me. It's like, it's like I shouldn't keep that guitar because the video didn't do well. Like payment wise, so like I'm better off getting paid than I am having this guitar. If I get the guitar and I like it and the video did well, I keep it. But a lot of times, so what happens is we used to not do this, but now we came with this idea. It was really great. Somebody suggested it. It might have been a patron, but a lot of times the companies, they send us a label and they go, they want the guitar back. And what we started doing, which has been really effective, is if the company wants the guitar back, we send them a message saying, what's your best blowout price on this guitar? So you don't have to send it back. We'll buy it. And then what I've been doing is we list it on Reverb, and then you buy it immediately, and then I ship it to you, and I send them their payment, and I keep the difference. And it's been a way we've been getting some extra funds on the channel. It's really nice. So there you go. Just let you know. All right, let's hit these last super chats. What do we have? We have Grumpy Mike Guitar. What's up, buddy? He says, for the tone jar and why not? What is your favorite overall 2-inch speaker. I'm considering switching out vintage 30s. I think it says 12-inch. It's 12-inch. It just was exclamation mark 2. So I'm like, what? Okay, 12-inch speaker. I'm considering switching out the vintage 30s in my cab or 2. So I love creambacks. I keep coming back to them. So you guys know I just bought a redback speaker. I've been comparing the redback speaker to the creamback. The redback speaker, if you're not familiar by Schlesinger, is a higher wattage than the creamback. And to me, it sounds like the creamback, but with more high frequency. So if you got a creamback and you think it's kind of like darker or muddy or whatever you think of it, redback might be the way for you to go. That being said, as much as I like the redback, creambacks all the way. In fact, I like having other speakers. I have greenbacks. I have Jensen's. I have some Emerson's. I have some Evanescence. I'm trying to think of what not the band, not the cheap radio company. I can't remember what they are. Doesn't matter. Here's what really matters. What really matters is I like creambacks to the point where I'll stick them in everything. The Amplify Nation has creambacks. All my Friedman amps have creambacks. If I have a cabinet and you see me in a video and I say, hey, this cabinet has something and I'm not saying creambacks, understand that I just haven't switched it to creamback yet. Because Eminence is, thank you guys, Eminence. I do have an Eminence speaker. I like it fine. It's good. I do have a greenback. I like the greenback with a G really, really well as well too. But I prefer creambacks. I just like the clarity of them. I don't know what it is. I have a V30s in a bunch of cabinets. Brian says you can mix the creamback and the V30. Yep, I've tried all the mix and match stuff. I just like creambacks. It's just something about them. They just appeal to me. And I even did a mix where I did a redback and a creamback, and it was a little better, but I didn't care. It was like, oh yeah, I could see where this is better, but for some reason, my default was right to creambacks. I don't know what it is about the speaker. It is specifically that it's like home to me. I just know it. So I like vintage 30s, but I prefer creambacks. In fact, I just bought a Marshall cabinet, and it's got their Marshall V30s in it. It's like they say Marshall them, but they're made in England, and I'm going to sell those off because I'm putting creambacks in it. So if anyone's interested in those, I have boxes to ship those in, and I'll sell them. So let me know. I'll probably put them up on for sale. The Lamp says, hey, Phil, watching from Ireland. Hey, I just got some cool stuff from Emerald Guitars. They sent me a hat and a shirt. And I was going to share it with you guys, but I'll probably do it next Friday. It says, hey, I'm watching from Ireland. Love the channel. Can I help? I'll try. Let's see what we can do. He says, I just got my first Gibson Les Paul. It's awesome, but can you recommend a stand or hanger that is suitable for Nitro? Yes. Absolutely. I like string swing. I like, hold on, let me move this bass. So the stands I recommend are what I use. It's all I use. So what's on the wall here is string swing. I'm not paid by string swing. I've never received a single penny from string swing ever in my life, ever. So, and just for more disclosure, string swing once did send me some product, a few hangers, right? But I own all these hangers. I bought them all. So anyways, string swing. That's what I recommend. And then zither stands, which are these stands, if I don't hit the ceiling, zither stands, which use a string swing cradle on here. And that's what I was hanging this bass on, is what I use. There are great stands out there. You can do your research. I'm not saying these are the only stands. I'm saying I love these stands. I use these stands. I trust these stands. And that's what I go with. Cause of headless guitars, I do own a couple other stands from Gator, which obviously, cause they're all poly, I don't have any Nitro, headless guitars. You could use, I could use those, but I prefer not to. I like literally just like the zither stands and the string swing. So string swing for me, for everything, with very few exceptions. And, there's a reason for that. It's because, I like I said, over the years, you heard all the testimonials. I got so many great stories about them with my experience with them. In other words, how the quality of their, how long they last, how well they take a beating. And so that's that. Funny thing to mention is I've said this before, which is true. String swing, at least I haven't checked recent years. Okay. In the last year or so, used to not tell you on their website, and they probably still don't. They would not tell you that it's safe for nitrocellulose lacquer. I asked them about this. They said, look, they're a small business. Okay. It's a few employees making string swing. And they just said they can't, they said basically, we can't swear that it won't hurt Nitro because obviously if someone damages somebody's guitar, it's like we'd be on the hook for that. So I was like, okay, I've never seen it damage Nitro. I have my Nitro guitars on string swings all the time for years, no issues. But funny, why the story's funny, Gibson does a knockoff of their stand. So they make a knockoff of the zither stand and they use a string swing cradle and they claim, even though it's not them making it string swing, they claim it's safe for Nitro. So Gibson claims string swing is safe for Nitro. I just want to be clear to you because you're talking about a Gibson. String swing doesn't swear it's safe for Nitro. I'm telling you, I've never had an issue with Nitro and string swing, but Gibson claims that their stand is safe for Nitro and their stand uses a string swing cradle. That's it. All right. I think we did it. Did we do it? If I missed something, I promise I come back to it next week. As the rest of you guys, I hope you had a fantastic weekend planned out and play some guitar. If you guys didn't see the bonus podcast with John from Throwback, I would check that out. If you didn't see the videos this week, you could check those out as well. I have lots of videos for you guys next week. And of course, we'll see you next Friday for the show. As always, I want to thank you guys, the moderators, the patrons, everybody for hanging out and talking guitars. And as always, thank you for your time and know your gear.
The Know Your Gear podcast. Today's episode of the Know Your Gear podcast is brought to you by Patreon members, channel members, and viewers who like and subscribe.